Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and programme stream at windowsontheworld.net. Welcome to Windows on the World. Well, the useful idiots have assembled in Switzerland for Davos. Their noses are well and truly in the trough, and the climate change con is on the agenda. We are even being told that 2016 was the warmest year on record. I'm here with Piers Corbyn of weatheraction.com. So Piers, why is this being pushed now?
I think the reason for this deluded nonsense pack of lies story to come out now is its preparation for the Davos World Economic Forum Summit. And they're going to be talking about climate on Thursday. And in particular, they want to try and marginalise Donald Trump's leadership against fake science and fake news. And this is what they brought up to do it. Now look, the actual facts are that they adjust world temperatures in order to fix a narrative. For example, the official data set for issued in 2001 said that 1990 was the warmest year in the data set, and it was warmer than 1998. Then they've had various data sets since, but the most interesting ones that were in later on, around 2010, where they had one which said that 1990 was colder than 1998, and that 1998 was the warmest in the data set and warmer than 2005. The same year they produced another data set which said 1990 was colder than 1998, which was in fact also colder than 2005. So they changed the data, making it colder in the past and warmer in the present in order to make it look as if the world is constantly getting hotter. It is not getting hotter, because the actual facts, if you look at, say, American data for when there was really superheated days of over 100 degrees F, then the peak of those was definitely in the late 1930s. It's definitely not now. So to suddenly say the hottest years ever are now, when clearly they don't show these record day temperatures, is absurd. And there's other serious problems with their assertions. They say, alarm, last year, they say 2017 was super hot, even though it was not an El Nino year. Well, it's actually not entirely true it wasn't an El Nino year. There was a kind of repeat mini El Nino, if you like, which happened. But they're making these claims to make it sound more alarming. The other interesting things to note about these records are that if you look at the details, they all amount to records in nighttime temperatures, which suggests they're choosing stations which have too much background undergrowth in them, which they don't trim back, so they'll get warmer and warmer successively at night. But the long and the short of the story is that they're giving under adjustments, under corrections for urban heating effects, which are of course very big at night. And in terms of the alarmist recent record temperatures in the United Kingdom, you notice when they talk about Faversham and Gravesend, these are in fact short data sets, and it looks like they were stations deliberately set up or chosen to be in places which were actually natural hotspots anyway. And the Faversham record itself has got a break in it. It started in 1959, but there was no record between 1990 and 98. So, you know, when they claim 2003 was the hottest, well, we don't have a record for 1990 there, so we don't know. And Gravesend, another place to talk about a lot, has only been recorded since 1995. So, you know, they deliberately choose short data sets in order to manipulate the narrative. And I think we have to have a proper protest against this and call for evidence-based science and have different people actually reporting on world temperatures and those that are putting forward the theory and adjusting the figures to fit their theory.
Yes, and the other thing that I've noticed about this Davos World Economic Forum list of attendees and speakers is that there's hundreds and hundreds of people going there, and this is just a big elite kind of social entourage and gathering, and they go there basically to be pampered and mollycoddled and have their egos massaged, and that's very, very clear by what's being said of the people who actually put the infrastructure in. I was just reading about it before we talked about this, and these are the useful idiots who are going to be instructed by the World Bank and the global financial controllers to get on board with this 2 degrees, and that 2016 was the warmest ever, and we've got to have carbon neutrality and cycling for all and all the rest of this stuff. And the scary thing is, these useful idiots are in positions of power, really. So how do you fight back against that?
Right, well, the facts in the end can win, but only if we can get them across. You see, the first thing, as a fact, their adjustments of temperatures show, and you go on our website, homepage, right hand side, go to the bottom, and you see the graphs of their data sets as produced in 2001 and the data sets as in various years, but in particular 2 lots of data sets shown in 2010. And you can see from that the current temperatures have been raised by 0.5 degree compared with what they would have on the original data sets. In other words, world temperatures are artificially raised by 0.5 degree compared with 1990 figures. Now, if you look further back, you can also see that 1990 temperatures are raised by some amount, maybe another 0.5 degree or even 1 degree. Difficult to be sure, but some amount compared with, say, 1900. So we have false data being used to sell a story. And a good question that Mark has just raised, I would say, is that in whose interest is this and who's running the conference? Well, the answer is, of course, the big banks and the biggest money operations in the world love man-made climate change because it's about big projects. Like in the name of saving the planet, they want to destroy the rainforest, Amazon rainforest in Brazil. They want to build dams all over it, which will mean death to the indigenous tribes and total destruction of the forest. And this is in the name of saving the planet. Now, this is nonsense. This is what I would call a fake green story, a fake green narrative, a fake green aim, but it makes billions of pounds for the banks. That is why they peddle this pack of lies at the brainwashing machine called the Davos Summit,
which engages the foremost political, business and other leaders of society to shape global, regional and industry agendas. And of course, this is all about Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 locally, and of course Habitat, which is all about sustainable development. That's all they're pushing. They're pushing this like absolute crazy. And all of this sort of narrative, when you look through this website, it's all of this constructed language, which is all about change and driving for change. And what they're doing it on the back of is the climate change agenda. And they're going to be there trying to persuade Trump to get on board with the carbon con. This is the whole purpose of it, I think, isn't it? Really,
yeah,
what we've seen in the press. Now, what would you say to people who are constantly posting under our videos, for instance, when we challenge people like Brian Cox? What would you say to them about checking out the data? Because a lot of the people who buy into this actually do quote this data, which I can see, even with a little research, is very, very exaggerated at best, and very dishonest, really, if you want to look deeper into it. So apart from going to Weather Action and really doing research for themselves, What would you say? What would you say? How can we get this over simply? Because there's been some great work by people like Malcolm Roberts in Australia, Tony Heller. They've been up in front of the Australian Parliament and demolished these people. But very few of the public get to know about it. And then we've got all these kind of co-opted, useful idiots, really, who are constantly putting out the same diatribe, the same stuff, and it's usually ad hominems against anybody who goes against this. This is a whole constructed fake narrative which they're pushing. And this website, this World Economic Forum, is so sickening. It's just like this nonsense that's written by your local council, by everything. It's a template kind of language, isn't it? So,
absolutely,
what we're going to do to get over it, Piers, because we have been trying this for quite some time.
Well, it's hard, but, you know, you have to stick at the facts. I think sometimes it helps to raise questions. You can ask these people, well, look, the actual data shows in the last 200 years there's a 60-year cycle in world temperatures, but there's no cycle in carbon dioxide. How, therefore, can you argue that carbon dioxide with no cycle is driving something which does have a cycle? It is complete, utter nonsense. But they never raise the facts at all. And the general picture in terms of the last million years is that world temperatures are an effect, not a cause, of world temperatures. A question you could ask all these people is, well, do you think the world temperature would be better if it's colder or better if it's warmer? Now, their logic is it would be better if it's colder. Now, we're in a year where we've had temperatures of -60, -70, -80 in bits of Russia and America. And it's been super duper record cold. And are they saying it should be colder? I mean, that is actually what they're saying. Now, this is completely insane. I mean, cold temperatures kill people a lot more than hot summers. Lot more. So what they're doing is actually of no help if their policies are going to be supported and they manage to cool things, which they can't, but it's going to cause more deaths. The danger for science is they're pointing everyone in the wrong direction. What actually is happening now is the world is cooling, and we're going to come into many catastrophically cold winters in the coming 20 years, and more lousy summers, which will cause a reduction in world food, and that will be a problem. But they're not even looking in that direction.
No, but planned food shortages are actually happening and going to happen. That is part of the Agenda 21. It's part of the artificial scarcity that's being introduced about everything. Interestingly, it says about the World Economic Forum that it is a not-for-profit foundation.
Well, the banks are making a hell of a profit out
and
of
it's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, a very cheap place to be, yeah. Why isn't it in Peckham?
Well,
or Sheffield, yes.
Well, you're talking about real up-and-coming places there. It is an independent, impartial and not tied to any special interests, yet it pushes interests of basically global corporations and the World Bank. So the whole thing is like a joke, and they have all these people on there.
Well, it's totally biased.
Yes, and they're very clever in a way, these people, because they just have useful idiots up there spouting this nonsense.
I mean, science has to have discussion. Carbon dioxide is an effect, not a cause of world climate, and we should request the right to attend Davos and have a fringe meeting in order to give balance to this event.
I agree with that entirely. Thanks very much, Piers.
Thank you.
Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm Mark Windows. Now, over the years, we've put out a lot of information. The Windows on the World show has run for several years now. We've exposed corruption, found solutions, and put out some very useful information on many subjects since we started doing this. This includes, of course, the bigger picture, along with well-researched history, science, and, of course, health matters, which we also cover. Now, our initial website was landofthefree.co.uk, and this was set up to fight the corporate courts, rogue bailiffs, and the unlawful actions of public officials. I and many others have successfully fought criminal bailiff companies and won in court against dishonest counsels. This information is all still available. The journalistic integrity of Windows on the World is very important, and we try to put out information that's forensically accurate and simplistic as possible. So we try and put everything out in a very easy way for people to understand, because over the years there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation, especially with where people stand within the law, and it's got a lot of people into trouble. So we've always stayed on the right side of the law, but being able to empower people to go into court and do the right thing, that's very important to us. Now, I put this information out to the public because I feel it needs to be there. And even within so-called alternative media, there is much information which is misleading and incorrect. In fact, all the things the now ridiculous mainstream media accuses the alternative media of, there are people putting out stuff that's very, very unhelpful, and we try not to do that. So we accept no funding from anybody and are completely independent. And it's now increasingly necessary that we get some help to fund what we're doing. We're looking for sponsors from self-employed small business sector, which, as we know, is being destroyed, and we cover this a lot on the show with the plans for regeneration, the soaring business rates, and the destruction of what we used to know as our environment, because we're finding that people now are being pushed out and socially engineered from the places that they need to be. We'd also like to appeal to individuals who might be able to donate. Now, the donate button on the site, you can just scroll down to the bottom of the page, and it's also on every article and every video on the site, on windowsontheworld.net. Now, I've never asked for any donations before, but things are getting a bit tighter for us, and we want to carry on and expand what we're doing. That's the most important thing, to expand what we're doing and be able to bring you much more information, which is very difficult at the moment because there's just a few of us. So, the bottom line is, if you can spare a few quid and enjoy what we're doing, press the donate button, we'll be very grateful. And if there's anybody out there, small businesses, who benefit from the sort of information that we put out, and we know there's quite a few because we've been contacted by them, if you'd like to make a small contribution or help out in any way, we'd be most grateful. That's the end of that, and we'll see you soon on Windows on the World.